Thank you. Greetings of the day, everyone. I am privileged to welcome all of you to the third session of the Orange City Literature Festival, organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation in association with GH Raisoni University, powered by Raisoni Group of Institutions, a platform that celebrates wisdom, experiences, narratives, and notions from all walks of life. Having said that, it's thrilling to be here with all of you today. I am Mustafa, delighted and enlightened to be your anchor for today's session. A funny book in children's genre by Miss Shabnam Minwalla in conversation with Mr. Vishal Jain. Ms. Shabnam Minwalla has worked as a journalist with the Times of India and writes food columns, book reviews, and features for Business Line, Times of India, and DNA. Her first book, The Six Spellmakers of Dorabji Street, was critically acclaimed and even won the Rivokids Parents and the Kids' Choice Award. It is being used as a reader by many schools and has also been converted into a play. Her other books include The Strange Haunting of Model High School, The Shy Supergirl, Lucky Girl, and What Maya Saw. Shabnam got her MA in journalism at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. She was also a Chevening Scholar at the Wilson College in Cambridge. It's an honor and my pleasure to have you with us, Ms. Shabnam Minwalla. And this gets even more delightful as we have Mr. Vishal Jain, who is going to be in conversation with her as the moderator. Now, Mr. Vishal Jain is the Central Director of the GEE BEE Education, a management graduate and is certified trainer for exams like IELTS by the British Council and for the TOEFL by the ETS. Having experience of sending students to various countries, he specializes in researching about various universities and the courses offered by them across the globe. Over 15 years, he has counseled hundreds of students and helped them achieve their goals by studying abroad. I once again warmly welcome you, ma'am, and I welcome you, sir. Also, before we move ahead, I would like to take a moment and acknowledge the support of the Speaking Tiger publication, as their association has been really valuable to the Orange City Literature Festival. Now, my dear audience, you are about to experience a conversation between two very dynamic individuals. So, without skipping a moment, I humbly welcome Mr. Vishal Jain, sir. Please ahead. Over to you, Mr. Vishal, sir.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Shabnam Minwalla, ma'am. It's a pleasure to connect with you, and thankful to OCLF to give me this opportunity to interact with you today, and especially about the book, which is about the funny genre in children. Being a mother of teenagers at home, okay. When I've you being a mother, I'm sure there must be a lot of things you must have experienced with those kids, especially for this book Nimi, because this Nimi is about a girl who is 11 years. And I can closely relate with it because I have a son who is 10 years now. So instead of Nimi, it's like my son Arab, I would say. So yes, I'm sure there is a lot to know about the book, and Nimi and you, ma'am, and maybe probably your kids also, we can discuss a bit, because I'm sure somewhere the inspiration comes from them for writing this book. Because your kids are almost teenagers, and this is about the 11-year girl. So is this book coming from them, or it's like your own thought process?
So I think each of my books has been born in a different way. My very first book, which is called The Six Spellmakers of Dorabji Street, was rooted heavily in my childhood and my experiences. But the Nimi series is definitely hugely based on their experiences as school children. Because now they are older, my twins are going to be 16 in a week and my older one is 18. But when they were little, every night when I sort of put them to bed, that was their favorite time of day, when they would spend half an hour telling me about all the things that had happened in school, good or bad. So, anything. Somebody burst a water bottle on somebody's head. Somebody lost one shoe and had to go home hopping. Somebody, so then there was a big incident in their class once where the school bought every classroom a bean bag. And the children were very excited. But my twins, Nisha and Naima, came home very disappointed on the second day after the bean bag arrived and said, while we were all away at lunch, somebody jumped on the bean bag so hard that the whole bean bag burst and the whole room was full of those white balls. And I was absolutely enchanted by that incident. So I think that has made its way into the NIMI book. But it's not just incidents, I would say. I think the NIMI book, in a way, talks about, being a child in school. So there's the highs, there's the exciting bits, there's the things of being with friends, going to fancy birthday parties. But there are the parts where children feel very helpless, especially if there are teachers who are a little, not very kind or pleasant, a little aggressive, a little mean. And then there are all these, I think all these experiences that children have around that age, I feel, especially girls, where, you are best friends with someone and then one day your best friend just switches off. And it's quite amazing because every time I do a NIMI book reading anywhere, at the end of the session, 3 little girls will come to me. They'll wait for everyone to leave the room and they'll come to me. Oh, even my best friend, her name was Karishma, and one day she just stopped being my best friend, and I feel very lonely. And I think that is a very integral part of childhood in a way. This sense of why has somebody left me, and the whole process of finding new friends, and not just finding friends, but finding yourself. And, so my earlier characters in my earlier books, there were elements of magic. For example, in Shy Supergirl, the Supergirl is a very shy girl. She's on the face of it not very extraordinary, but she has a magical power. When she looks at people, she sees colors around them. And so she gets a sense of what kind of people they are. Whether they are good or evil or conniving or loving or depressed, whatever. In NIMI, I was very clear that I wanted her to be a very ordinary girl. So right in the beginning of the book, I say very clearly, NIMI is not too clever and she's not too not clever. She's not too pretty and she's not too plain. She's the girl in the middle. She's, I think, the child that's like you and me, and growing up the way we did. So, yeah.
That's really nice. And yeah, I'm sorry for this disturbance.
Yeah, sure.
So while writing this book, what really made you change from newspapers to these books? Because being a journalist, I'm sure there is still a journalist inside you. So
Yes.
was this the detectiveness investigation thing? Like, is it like where does this inspiration comes from to get into the books? Of course, after becoming a mother and that to a housewife, and taking care of the kids at home, a lot of things do change. But you could have even chosen to still continue writing for newspapers or your other journalism task. So what made you write books actually?
So it's actually a long story. So at any point when you get fed up, just tell me to stop. Okay. But yeah, so for 10 years, I was a journalist with Times of India and I loved my job. I mean, it was unparalleled in terms of, the experiences that you get. One day you're in a 5-star hotel, the next day you're in a tiny village without water and electricity. The third day you're interviewing a really evil criminal. The fourth day you're interviewing somebody who's virtually a saint. So, it's that range of interaction and understanding human beings is just something incredible. And I think for me also the joy was understanding my city. I'm a Mumbaikar, a hardcore Mumbaikar. And I think for me, Mumbai came alive because every time I would travel from one corner of the city to another, I would look at buildings and say, in that building is the man who heals people with the essence of flowers. In that building is that evil vice chancellor of Mumbai University. So the entire city, the map of the city in my head was very different. Then, 10 years later, a big change happened in my life. And very quickly, I got 3 children. I mean, not one, not two, but three. So I had an older one and 2 years later, twins. So my plan had always been to return to journalism, but I think anybody who's dealt with children knows that if you have 1 2-year-old and 2 infants, you very quickly recalibrate your life expectations. And I spent a vast amount of time shoving mashed potato and mashed doodhi and mashed khichdi into the mouths of 3 unwilling children. And sort of, doing that classic mummy thing. Look at that crow. What does a crow say? Ka. Then shoving that spoon of food in at that minute. And I was getting more and more irritable. And I did try to return to journalism, but it was, one interview I had to take my 2-year-old and do the interview, and she was getting cross. So it was becoming difficult. And I think at some point it struck me that one of the reasons I became a journalist was not so much because I love news, but because I love writing and I love words. And actually, I think when I thought back to the time when I dreamt of writing, my dream had been to be a writer of books, a writer of fiction. But when you grow up, you want something practical, you want a sensible job. And so that's where I came from. I went and became a journalist. So, and I thought that at this point of my life, nobody's expecting anything of me except that I keep 3 children relatively healthy, relatively clean, and a bit happy. And so maybe in my off time, it's very little off time, but maybe I can try and write a book. So literally, my first book, 6 Spellmakers of Dorabji Street, was born. I would put the children to bed and I would have 45 minutes to myself and I would write like 2-3 paragraphs, and that's how it sort of inched ahead. And it came as a huge surprise to me actually when a publisher picked it up very quickly and published it. And it seemed very unexpected because this was this dream and it happened in such a strange and straightforward way. Having said that, I never planned to be a children's writer. My aim was to go back to journalism. But then one day I was in the school library and a bunch of children approached me. The school my children go to, there is a lot of parent volunteering. So I volunteered for the library. So a whole lot of little girls came to me and they said, Auntie, can you write your next book about a school that is set in Mumbai? Not a school in England. We want a story about a Mumbai school. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And then a few nights later, I was putting my little ones to bed and I was talking to them about my school. And I was telling them, now I don't know if children do this anymore, but I was telling them about how whenever a teacher entered the classroom, we would all stand up and say, good morning, Miss Joshi. And then whenever the teacher left, we would, good morning and thank you, Miss Joshi. And if the class was very boring, then we would do, thank you, Miss Joshi. And my girls found it very funny. And suddenly, to me, I knew I had the first line of a book. And I went and quickly typed down this line, good morning and thank you, Miss Javeri. And the amazing thing is, by the next morning, I had a very clear idea of the school that I wanted the story set in and the glimmer of an idea. And so my next book, I'll show it to you. It's called The Strange Haunting of Model High School. That was born in a way. And then, of course, I think different publishers got in touch with me. And I think once you start writing, you start viewing tiny experiences in your life in a different way. And so each of those experiences seem to trigger a book. This book of mine called What Maya Saw was born in a very unexpected way. It was born when I went to a college in Mumbai called St. Xavier's College. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful place. Old quadrangles, gargoyles, carvings. It's an old Gothic structure. And one day the principal called me and he said, Shabnam, the college is turning 140 years old and we are planning to bring out a book. It's going to be a coffee table book, but we want you to do a little writing for it, just a little. It's going to be largely pictures. So I went to the college library and started reading 140 years of college magazines. It was fascinating, so fascinating, in fact, that the book eventually became a book of half text and half pictures, the college book. But one afternoon, when I was sitting in the college library, and this is a huge space, with sun streaming in from the windows, and it was a very hot afternoon, So all sensible college students were in the college canteen drinking their juice, Ganga Jamna and Ganga Jamna Saraswati. So it was me and a sleepy librarian who was like dozing in one corner. So I was doing my research and I thought I was alone in the library. But because of that light, I guess, I saw somebody, I saw like a silhouette. And I looked up and I really, I got so frightened that my heart stopped at that moment and I almost stood up and screamed. Because I thought I saw a girl, but a girl with horns coming out of her head. It was a terrifying moment. I mean, here I was a mother of 3 who almost screamed her head off. Luckily for me, I looked carefully and I realized it was a trick of lights. So my life carried on, but that moment of fear stayed with me. And I think I kept asking myself, what if that girl really had horns coming out of her head? And I think what Maya saw in a way was the answer to that question. So I think with this book, I really became somebody who decided this is what I want to do with my life. And I decided I just want to write books, a lot for children and some for adults. And I think my Nimi series was born. So the day What Maya Saw got over, a publisher I had never worked with, Speaking Tiger, contacted me. And it was a coincidence, right? Because I was very busy with What Maya Saw, but I had just shut the file. And she called me and she said, we are looking for a series of books on a middle grade schoolgirl, a little funny, a little light-hearted, but your schoolgirl. You create the series the way you want. And I went home and I had planned to take like a month off and not do any writing and clean cupboards and, do all the mummy things. But amazingly enough, Nimi popped into my head and I'll show Nimi to you. Where are you, Nimi? This is Nimi. Okay, so she popped into my head, untidy curly hair, surprised expression and all. And so did all her friends and that little world around her. And the school she attends called Vidya World School. And suddenly there was a series born. And by the end, I've written 3 books, but I have enough, I think, in my head to carry on another 3 more if at some point it ever happens. Yeah, that's how Nimi was born.
Right. So Nimi definitely is a girl who has an experience what any other schoolgirl would also have.
Absolutely.
And behind every laughter, there's always an adventure, I believe, in these kids.
Yes.
So what is the best adventure Nimi had, in your series?
Okay, so Nimi's had multiple adventures, but maybe what I'll do is I'll start out by telling you how the series begins. And shall I do a tiny book reading from her first
Please,
day?
please, that will be a pleasure.
Sort of set the stage in a sense. So Nimi, as I told you, is a girl in the middle. She lives in an area called Tough Parade with her mother, who is this very cheerful person who believes in Vastu and Feng Shui and happy colors and, positive thinking. So she's always telling her children, even if they are so sick that they're throwing up 25 times a day, think positive and you will get well. And Nimi gets very irritated. And of course, Nimi's dad is like many dads in our world, so busy that he hardly appears in my books. And I feel very sorry about that. And Nimi has a brother called Tarun. And Tarun is one of those boys who, if you ask him, please name the rings of Saturn and the moons of Jupiter, he will tell you, tha, 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 tha. But if you say, hey, Tarun, what is the name of that man who lives next door to you? There is some man living next door to me, I hadn't noticed. So he is the closest you will come to a walking encyclopedia who never notices the world around him. Now, Nimi goes to Vidya World School, which is a slightly funky alternate school with a headmaster called the booming Mr. Bakshi, because he talks in a very loud voice and carries a purple cane because he had just fractured his ankle a few months ago. Nimi is a girl with strong likes and dislikes. Her favorite color in the world is grey. Her best friend in the world is a girl named Sophia. And she loves words. She loves words so much that while other children would collect, feathers and seashells and bottle caps and, Pokemon stuff, she collects words in her head. And she has like this imaginary chest of drawers. And she will put in words, big words, small words, pokey words, round words, soft words, hard words. And sometimes she doesn't find the perfect word for what she wants to say. So she will bung 2 words together. And let's see if you can guess. So what other words do you think are spectabulous? What are the two words that make up spectabulous?
Spectacular and fabulous.
Absolutely. So, and the other, where are you, Nimi? So this is Nimi's dreadtastic detective days. So the two
Right.
there are dreadful and fantastic. And Nimi's Bizupa birthday, any guesses? It's a tough one.
No.
Bizarre and super. And she makes up
Okay.
lots of words. So exploding pumpkin will become ex-plumpkin. So the book is full of such words. Now it's the first day of grade 6. And Nimi can't decide whether she's thrilled to go back to school or she's miserable that the holidays are over. Then she decides that she's excited because she's going to meet her best friend Sophia, and whom she's not met for 2 whole months because Sophia has been away traveling. So Nimi gets all set. She packs her present that she bought from Hong Kong for Sophia, and she rushes off to the school bus, she and Tarun. And it's a fantastic day because it's wet and cloudy, so it's her favorite color, gray. So she thinks it's a very good omen, and it's going to be a wonderful year. And she even catches the school bus on time, so she's even more happy. Now, when she gets into the school bus, a familiar and very hated voice greets her. Nimi Daruwala, how are you? Because poor Nimi, her surname is Daruwala, and that is the bane of her existence. And as is this boy Sumit, who is now traveling in her bus, and he always teases her, Nimi Daruwala, where is my whiskey? Where is my beer? And Nimi feels very depressed. So Nimi is going to school thinking, oh God, Sumit is now going to be in my bus. This is not such a good omen. But she goes to school and she goes bouncing up the stairs to her classroom. She's looking everywhere. She can't see Sophia. And then finally, the door of the classroom opens and Sophia walks in. Except that it's not the kind of Sophia that she knows. Sophia was this very excited, very untidy, very messy girl, full of ideas and joy. But the new Sophia, her hair has been straightened. Her uniform is immaculate. She walks in looking very bored. But the even more horrific thing is, when she enters the classroom, she waves not at Nimi, but at Nimi's arch enemy, a very snobbish and nasty girl called Alisha Chennai, who is sort of the kind of girl who has more than everybody else and better than everybody else and is always boasting. So Nimi thinks Sophia must be having jet lag and she calls her Sophia, Sophia. So Sophia looks at Nimi, but it is very clear that her excitement is not in meeting Nimi, but in meeting Alisha Chennai. And slowly over the day, Nimi realizes that her best friend Sophia has turned into half a zombie, half a Barbie doll, a zombie. Poor Nimi. Never mind. Nimi is still happy because her favorite teacher in the world, Miss Tanvi, is going to be their class teacher. And Miss Tanvi is super fun. She wears these swirling skirts and silver bangles. And she's always she teaches drama in English. So she's always making the children act as if they are owls and act as if they are mops and act as if they are microwave ovens. And all the children are very happy. Then the door opens and I am going to tell you what happens. All the children love Miss Tanvi, which was why, as the door began to inch open, the entire class beamed. Then they saw who was standing at the other side, and their smiles wilted. The teacher at the door was not Miss Tanvi. She was a total stranger, and not an instant love sort of stranger either. The teacher, who was not Miss Tanvi, walked into the classroom with neat, precise steps. Everything about her was neat. Her brown and white kurta was crackly with starch. Her brown hair looked as if it had been fevicol into place. Her face was a pale square from which pale eyes stared at the class. "Where's Miss Tanvi?" Imran blurted out from the last row. The teacher, who was not Miss Tanvi, gave Imran a look, a long, unblinking look. Then finally she spoke. "Good morning," she said, and her voice was thin and precise and flat, a perfect accessory for the fevicol hair and pale eyes. "I am Miss Atmaja, class teacher for grade 6. Tanvi is taking a break. And this year, I will be teaching you English and drama." A restless murmur ran through the room. The word Miss Tanvi and unfair buzzed around the room like angry mosquitoes. Miss Atmaja treated them to another one of her pale stares. Then she reached out and picked up something rectangular and white from her desk, held it up. It was a large placard, the kinds that people hold outside airports. Only this one didn't say, "Welcome, Mr. Jairaman, RLC Chemicals." It had just one word written on it in black block letters: silence. The students stared at the placard. One by one, they fell silent. Even Imran and Rohan. Was something about those bossy loud letters enforced obedience. Atmaja put the placard down. She continued in a colorless voice. "Now a few rules in the class. I expect you to speak only when spoken to. I expect discipline. I expect homework on time. Any questions? If not, please pull out your grammar workbooks. Exercise 1, active and passive voice." "Miss," Rohan protested, "we never study on the first day of school. We get to know each other. We will tell you our names. You can tell us more about yourself." My stomach is hurting. Can I go to the nurse's office?" Grishma groaned from the last row. "Miss." Yes, Sarah piped up. "We play games and stuff on the first day." "My stomach is hurting. Can I go to the nurse's office?" Grishma droned again. Miss Atmaja ignored the resentful faces. She ignored the drone. She held up a hand. It was as white and square as her face. "Exercise 1," she repeated. "What you don't complete in school will have to be completed at home as homework." Now, the entire class really doesn't want English grammar active and passive homework on the first day. So they all leap into their bags and start pulling out their books. Nimi has forgotten that she has got a present for Sophia because the new Sophia was so unwelcoming that she completely forgot that bit. Now, while she is pulling out her book, Nimi is quite a disorganized girl and she's looking for English grammar book. She pulls out the parcel. The parcel is wrapped in brown paper. We don't know what happens next. Nimi never finds out. Did she put a book on the parcel? Did she press down on the parcel? Did somebody else press down on the parcel? But in the parcel is one of those toys, that if you press down, they leap up. This one is of a very ugly spider with bright red eyes. Nimi presses down, or somebody presses down on that parcel, and suddenly, in the middle of the classroom, a brown packet leaps up into the sky, hits the ceiling of the classroom, comes down and bounces on Sakina's desk. Now, Sakina is one of those girls, if somebody hiccups 3 buildings away, Sakina will go, "Ah!" So when a brown parcel comes and leaps onto her desk and leaps up again, she screams her head off. When Sakina screams, so does half the class. But the parcel continues jumping desk to desk. 3 desks later, it jumps onto the floor of the classroom. It sheds its wrapping paper. And a second later, the ugliest black spider with red eyes goes and hits Miss Atmaja straight on her nose. And what do you think happens? What do you think the entire class does? Everyone is laughing except 2 people, Mimi and Miss Atmaja. Miss Atmaja turns a glowing red color like one of the 0-watt bulbs. And she says, "Who did this?" And there is silence in the class. "Don't tell me. Who did this?" no football for the entire year. So poor Nimi puts up her hand and says, Miss Atmaja, it was me, but it was a mistake, it was a mistake. Miss Atmaja says, stand up. Then she looks at Nimi and she says, tell me your name. And Nimi says, Nimi, the Daruwala. And Miss Atmaja looks at her and says, Nimi Daruwala, the troublemaker of grade 6. And that is how poor Nimi, on her first day at school, gets nasty Sumit in her bus, finds out her best friend has turned into a zombie, and makes an enemy who is scarier than Darth Vader and Voldemort rolled into one. And that is where I will end with my Nimi introduction.
That Nimi's introduction is really adventurous, I would say. And the way it has started, that Nimi has resumed her school after summer breaks after 2 months. I believe it's going to be the same for the kids going back to school again now after pandemic. So it's going to be almost 2 years now.
Yes.
A lot of things have changed for them. Not only their friends, their teachers and all, everything has changed for them.
Absolutely.
So do you have something to say for them as well? Because Nimi is she a girl of a digital era, or she's a girl wherein only books were better friends or comics were better friends of kids?
So in Nimi's Bizupa birthday, here you are, Nimi is very excited about her birthday because, of course, everyone who is turning 12 is excited. But she's even more excited because she is getting her phone. After begging and pleading, her parents have agreed to finally give her a phone, and she's totally excited because now she's going to get onto all the WhatsApp chats and she feels she's going to be part of the class. But that can have its own pitfalls. And Nimi, as we know, is quite a disorganized girl. And there are times when she types a message, she doesn't bother to read what she has written. And that causes its own share of problems, especially with Miss Atmaja. And I won't tell you exactly what happens with Miss Atmaja because I would really hope that one day children will read that part. But I will give you a little glimpse into what happens. So when she is writing to her friend Maria, she writes, Dear Maria, hi Maria, tell me something. But spell check changes it to Dear Malaria, and Maria gets most offended. And Tara, who is a girl in the senior class, gets even more offended when her name is changed to Tarantula because she thinks, how dare a junior student insult me in this way? And Nimi is making a whole bunch of mistakes on her phone. So while, yes, she is a character in the digital age, she loves Instagram and she follows a whole lot of dogs who wear bows and children who gurgle in funny ways on Instagram. She also has her Instagram and her phone bad moments. In fact, she almost gets expelled from her school because of a particularly strange message that she posts on the class chat, enraging Miss Atmaja, who, as it is, hates Nimi. Through the books, there are episodes where she starts hating Nimi more and more. So, yes.
Time is so running short, I believe, because I believe there's so much to talk about. There are so many books you've written and so many things to discuss about, especially when it comes about kids. But with this, I believe you don't believe in writing books with morals.
Yes.
You rather let them experience the things. Do we expect a book with moral for the adults, at least, if not for the kids?
I would say parents want a book with morals for their children because I think this is true of India at least. I'm not sure how much it's true of other parts of the world. I think as parents, we are very goal driven. So whatever our children are doing, we want them to get something out of it, something tangible. So, what are you doing? You're only reading a storybook. Then the hope in their head is at least it will teach them something. So I have many parents who come and ask me, what will your books teach my children? Or what is the moral of your story? I've never had a child ask me that. And I strongly believe that while books can hold messages, the power of literature, the power of books is allowing children to explore, to read a story and to arrive at their own message, to arrive at their own conclusion, to arrive at understanding what they want to get out of it, because books do many things to children, and I think primarily more than just force feeding them a story, be respectful to adults. you have to allow the children to arrive at their own conclusion, whether to be respectful or to say there are some adults who deserve our respect and some who don't. And I strongly believe, especially the children of our days, where they exposed to so many different inputs all the time, are not going to just swallow a capsule with a moral in it. We have to encourage them to explore and arrive and develop, I think, the character sort of elements of their character like empathy and compassion. And that, I think, you cannot force feed. That comes from understanding how others feel. And I think all literature, great books across the world help children to develop that.
Certainly. And I believe children, they discover models in everything and anything, whatever they do and see and hear and experience. With this, I would like to really thank you for taking your time to contribute to OCLF. And Mustafa, it's all to you now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vishal sir. Thank you very much, Ms. Shabnam ma'am, for sharing your kind words. Your conversation was so interesting and it gave me serious nostalgia. It put me back to my school days. So I would really thank Ms. Shabnam Minwalla and Vishal Jain sir for joining us today. We wish to hear you both again, and we will be equally enlightened as we all are today. And from a dear massive audience, I'm sure after witnessing and hearing this conversation, all of you are taking home an enriched version of yourself, just as I am. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. Until I see you again, this is Mustafa signing off.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Jain.
Thank you, ma'am.
I hope this was as
Wonderful. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much. I wish you had some more time to speak, but you also had your sessions ahead of this. All the best, and hope to connect with you again.
Thank you. Bye, Mustafa.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Raisoni, vision beyond.